Every once in a while, I'll grab my wife's keys and go put some gas in her car. I'm not gonna act like I do it all the time, but I do it sometimes. You know, it's it's kind of interesting though. I didn't really have an example of what being a man was like. I didn't have an example to show me what I needed to do. And though there did become some examples like my wife's dad and everything, other people showed me some stuff. I didn't have a man in the home to show me. No one that I had a trust towards that I could just listen to and say, oh. So I had to basically cherry pick and learn some things. And so a lot of times when I'm expressing myself as a man, trying to be a leader, a lot of people don't like how I do it. And they say I don't have the level of grace that's necessary. And I'm like, man, you do realize a lot of the stuff that I got harsh. And I'm trying not to be as harsh as what I received, but that's a way of learning for me. I heard through the harshness, because a lot of times those that coddle people, I seen that, and I seen the lack of responsibility that was a result of it. Chastening was a way of love for me. And so if I am too hard, I'm not trying to be, but I see how this world is for real. And me being a man, I did not have a blueprint put before me. Me being a husband, I have a failed marriage, but I learned from that failed marriage. My first marriage was 4.5 years, and most of it, well, over a year and a half, I was separated. And so it was a tumultuous situation, but I've been in this one finna be 23 years. I always say 23, but it's 22 and it's approaching 23 years. I had an engagement with my wife, that extended past a year where we didn't touch each other and stuff like that. Not saying that we didn't touch each other before that engagement started, because we did. But, I've been learning as I go. And I'll be trying to share the information with people. I'm like, man, did you know this? Did you know that? And a lot of times people express to me that they knew this. And I'm like, well, when I was stumbling, when I was going through a lot of trials and tribulations, where was the advice from you? If you already knew this, when I learn it, I'm trying to show somebody. But a lot of times they say, I knew that. And I'm like, well, I just don't get it. And so a lot of times I get beat up because I'm sharing information that has worked for me. And they say, oh, they don't work for everybody. And I'm like, I get it. It may not. But what you're doing right now ain't working. So why not try something different? See, I was raised up in a matriarchal situation. And so now I stand as a patriarch. And almost every time I try to move as a man, it said, oh, he hates women. And I'm like, no, I don't. If anything, I have more issues with men for not stepping up. But the thing is, though, in taking back the position that is rightfully given by Yah, you're going to have to step on some toes. And if the women are in that position and they're not wanting to give up that position, then what's going to happen? What they have to be taken. Or I just have to move away from them and do my own thing. And most parts, I didn't take nothing. I moved away and did my own things. And they said, well, you're so distant. And I'm like, well, we have contrasting beliefs. We don't see things the same. When I speak on something with conviction, it's not viewed right. I come up from a family where I've heard males say that, their grandmother or a woman was their example of a dad. And I'm like, what? where they say, in my family, they say Happy Father's Day to women. And I'm like, no, that will not be. You know, I don't celebrate Father's Day anyway no more. But I'm like, when I was, I'm like, man, this is an attack on the Father. And they didn't see it as an attack on the Heavenly Father. If you have a distortion of how you view fathers, how is that not going to affect how you view the Heavenly Father? But again, when I share information, I'm going to expect that there's going to bring forth attack, and I'm ready for it. I don't run from it. I do get bothered by it sometimes, but I don't run from it. I welcome it. Even though I don't like it, I still welcome it because I know it's part of the process. That is part of the chastening process that I've always went through. You know, I got disciplined a lot as a young person. And I used to think it was abusive, and it might have been. But of course, without a man there, raising a man is not something that a woman is actually geared up to do. And raising a woman is not something that a man's geared up. You need to have both to balance that out. So I've always tried to be in my children's life, even when that was denied to me. And people, even tried to make me feel bad about that. If you don't fight for your children, you don't love them. And I'm like, if I'm loving on them, why do I have to fight for them? Why do I have to go against things that are said about me that are untrue? Why is that? But this is how this world is operating. And so I've dealt with so many different things. You know, my two oldest children, I still love them very much, but of course, they have more influence by other things than me. My two youngest have great influence from me. Sometimes, I guess the different parents feel like, okay, the liberties that the two oldest got, sometimes the youngest two feel like, okay, you let them get away with everything. And I'm like, well, they're grown. And a lot of times the two oldest feel like the youngest get away with everything because, they were in my home. And I'm like, well, you had a place here in my home. I just couldn't control that you were taken away from me. I've always had joint custody of you, but if it wasn't been honored, it was nothing I could do. The courts were not working in my favor. But your dad has been consistent. I've been who I am. Been someone who's been learning on the job. Someone who did not experience fathering other than, taking a little bit here, a little bit there from people. And I'm trying to be a father. Someone who didn't experience being around marriages. And again, taking a little bit here, a little bit there. And I don't make any excuses for it. Not blaming my mom, blaming my dad, my father, it is what it is. I'm 53 years old and I'm walking as a patriarch. Going to stumble a little bit, but I'm going to keep getting up for the job and the task. All right. Time to get this stuff in the house. I went and got some salt for the water softener as well while I was out. Did some mailing of some stuff, and then I got to get ready for work. So, yada Yahuwah. Hallelujah.